Good morning, nerds! Yes, I do love saying that, and I'll probably continue to do so. Anyway, I finally got the chance to sit down with Brian, Ginger Prime, Brian from Work to Game, and I was really excited because the very first podcast I was on was actually with Brian, and so it was really cool that he was able to fit me in for this podcast. And for those of you who don't know, he's an awesome guy. I joke about how many YouTube channels that he has and always say it's about 20, and you should check out every single one of them if you would like. He's been getting into Guild Wars 2, but his content has mainly been 14, but he has a vast amount of interests with games, and he also does guides, and I wish him all the best, and I hope to get him back. And here it is, the podcast with Brian from Work to Game. New player talking about experiences with Guild Wars 2, comparing and contrasting Guild Wars 2 with 14, and just all around showing him off.
Those shadows fall, still the stars find their way.
It's just in terms of that, yeah, it feels like maybe 20 channels, but I obviously that's kind of the running joke. I think between me and what I share with Chris, I'm at 6, and that's just kind of like ends up being something that I have, like I like creating videos, and I like the fact that with different channels gives me a different opportunity to kind of speak to like a new community, and it's like, okay, and this is all just through discoverability. Like when we talk about, you bring up a parent's guide, like that's a channel that's like, it's only like at 400 subs now, but it's definitely hitting the watch time. So it's just something that I'm growing. But the thing is that I was putting those videos in my, like on Ginger Prime or even on Work to Game, and then when we realize is like that's bringing in a community, but then they're not being served by the content that we want to make on that channel. So it's like, well, I want to make that content, let me shift that over. And so that's kind of how that ended up just kind of making sense. It ends up being a lot of work, and it's hard to do. The first one is really hard to do because you're like, oh, but people are already over here. And yes, I might only get like 1% of my current community to watch, but that definitely feels scarier to go over here and like, oh, no one sees that. So that's just kind of how that ends up flowing and going. I forgot if there was another question that I was supposed to answer, but thanks for having me on. This is great.
No, you're fine. I'm still waking up, so it's completely cool. This is like legit coffee and games today. It was iced coffee, but
very nice. I already had my coffee, and now I'm into hydration and games.
So when did you guys actually start? When did you start content creation? How many years has it been?
It's going to be 5 years this August.
Wow.
5 years. And in fact, and it's kind of funny because like the core root of it was Chris and I, like we've been friends for a long time. He went to school with my brother. He went to college with my brother. And we would always just end up hanging out together because me and my brother are real close. And we just end up talking about games. And this just continued on. So Chris and I would just end up like having like once a week phone call where we're just talking game theory, like marketing, monetization, like all the different like issues. And then at some point we're like, maybe we should just record this and put it out on the internet, like, cause we think we're interesting. And then nobody else did. So nobody watched if you actually go back and look at our first videos, they're still there. And it's like 1 view, 3 views, like not even anybody who's interested in something today is like, let's bounce back in time. And essentially what ended up happening was I was already doing podcasting for Final Fantasy XIV. I started a podcast with friends, and I ended up getting picked up by Curse, but I wasn't doing anything within the YouTube space. I was just doing podcasts. I like talking about games. We'd talk 14, we'd drink beers, and that's essentially the root of the podcast we created. And then essentially that was like a whole history thing. So I already kind of had a little bit of like, I'm actively playing this game, and I was completely unaware of YouTube and all that, but I played on controller, and that seemed to be something that people were always asking about. How do you play this game on controller? So I started doing like targeted personalized guides, and that ends up being where I eventually put one in video form, and I like literally published it, and I was like, well, for anybody who needs it. Didn't even look at numbers or stats. Like this was just like, yeah, here we're doing our little podcast. And then I go back in like a week later, and for us, like who has my mom subscribed, my sister subscribed, like maybe 3 subscribers to the channel at the time. All of a sudden the video had like 3,000 views. And I was like, oh, people need this. This is something good. And they were like, thank you. I was like, okay, well, I've been playing this game for years already. I already have these jobs. Let me just go ahead and show you how I do it. And like it's kind of funny to think where we are today, but like even back in 2.0 and 3.0, there were so many quality of life features we have today that there were so many things you had to do just to really get it to function. And so I was happy to kind of help that, and that's how people discovered like us and our content, and then they stuck around. And I was like, great. So I'm very grateful. I've really enjoyed it, and obviously either have a problem because I create so much, or I'm just kind of focused. I don't know if anybody. I wouldn't say I'm diagnosed OCD, but I like things that I can finish. So it makes it hard because if I like when in work, if I can't finish the project like within or like I usually have a deadline. So if it's like something that's going to take me 2 weeks, I get frustrated if all of a sudden I'm at 3 weeks and then at 4 weeks. And a video allows me to sit here and say, this is what I want it to be. And then I usually typically can finish a video within a week. So it's like, okay, cool. I can, here's what I need. Here's what I'm piecing together. And then it's such a fun thing to have. There's nothing. And then all of a sudden something exists, just like this podcast.
Exactly.
This podcast didn't exist, but now it does. You willed it into existence. And it's exciting. I don't know. I'm a nerd.
No, you're fine. I always say I have a problem too, because I actually had I put out a video that was just about how kind of weird I am with Guild Wars 2, which is like completely the opposite of your OCD-ness. It's like of your talking about it, but because I literally went in and said, I like this, and this. I now have 5 different playlists, and I'm just gonna, whatever I feel inspired to do, post stuff on this. And people are like, don't you think it's kind of weird that your content isn't streamlined? And I'm like, no, I have a problem.
I think it's part of your uniqueness. I think it's like, there's a fear I have with efficiency. I have to game efficiently. I'm a dad. I've got 5 kids. I'm a sole provider for the family. When y'all support me on content creation, that actually now does help my family out for a long time. Like there was a year I even let Chris have all the revenue on Work to Game because like he was unemployed at the time. So it's like, take it, like I'm working. And now it's not like an insane amount of money, but we're able to take that money and like, hey, it's part of the budget for diapers and for all these little things. So it helps us out, but it's the side hustle, right? Like if you think of it in terms of that. So I'm the sole provider. And so when I game, I have to, there's like 2 switches. Last night I was playing Super Mario 3D World with Maddie and the kids. And that's about non-efficient gaming. That's what you're kind of like, this is like, oh, where does Maddie want to go? What are the kids excited about? Let's pick that level. Yeah, we've gotten everything from that level, but we're going to play that level again because they like it. It's not goal oriented, but from a content creator perspective, I have to have that goal orientation. So it's like, okay, I have 2 hours to play. This is what I'm going to focus on. And there's a loss there. There's a grieving. There's a like, it is kind of like, okay, I'm focused and that's how I get things done. And I'm very good at that. But there's also when I go play with my kids to turn that off and just enjoy the experience. And I think that's kind of where it give and take. So what I've done, I actually haven't released a video on it, but I thought about it and we'll see if I do decide to make a dedicated video for the channel for Ginger Prime. But I was like, there's actually games that I've started playing that I'm not going to post content on because I can enjoy the game itself and I can just experience it and not create content for it. And so it's kind of like, what is my content? And I'm like, Guild Wars 2, both passionate about, but I love that game and I want to share it with more people. But Destiny, for example, I'm not going to make more content on it, but I am going to play when my friends play it. So it becomes that experience. So I kind of trying to find that for myself and what that means for me. That's a long way of saying.
No, you're fine. It's actually kind of funny because there are a lot of people that don't understand the difference. They're like, oh, play what you want, play what you love, especially when you are doing things for content creation and when you are, turning that on. It's a different, it's like playing with your kids versus playing a game by yourself versus playing it on Twitch because you're worried about entertaining people. You're worried about making sure you retain lore if you say that you're interested in lore. And it's so like for me, especially with MMOs, I want to talk to every single NPC.
Yeah.
And that might not be something that people want to watch me do. And so I have to take that into consideration when I stream. Or if I do that, I have to not do it as frequently. Not that I have to not do it as frequently, but it's a completely different, it's change of pace. It's totally different. my dog's getting into everything. But with that, and
Yeah.
you talking about Guild Wars 2 and all of this controller play and
Yes.
doing guides, so why do you prefer controller? And how was your experience trying to play without a controller at first with just mouse and keyboard for Guild Wars 2?
That's a great question. The preference comes into my dad gave me some advice because I work from home, have for the last 4 years, but he gave me this advice when I went and started working. He says, when you get done with work, go take a shower. Go take a shower is the first thing you're done with work because it gets like the day off of you. You know, whether like even subconsciously, maybe there's like, you know, maybe you smell a little bit, right? And probably I did, and maybe that's why he was saying it. But the idea is that there's a mental shift in your day, and especially more importantly to today's society, in which that like my phone could ring and like all the time, and people can reach out and ping you. It's same thing with content creation. Like if you don't step away from your phone or your devices, you might feel like you're always answering comments and things of that nature, right? So there has to be a mental shift in my day. And part of that is controller play. A part of that is I work on a keyboard and mouse all day, every day. And when I play a game on a keyboard and mouse, it feels like work, especially with how I just addressed it in the previous answer, especially with when I'm playing efficiently, because I only have a limited window, and that limited window can be cut off. Trust me when I say I don't bemoan being a dad at all. Like honestly, it's the highest privilege that I have. It's the highest blessing that I have. Games are fun, but they aren't the be all end all for me. But I do enjoy games, and I want to like, okay, cool. I have I know that that's how I have to play today. It won't always be the case, but for today, I have to do that. And so it kind of I don't want it to feel like work, because being that I have a goal and I'm not just kind of like, you know, just kind of enjoying it outside of when I'm playing with my kids. Like I have to have a clear separation from when I'm working and when I'm playing, and whether I'm streaming or not. Like I like sitting back and picking up the controller. Now with Guild Wars, that's the thing. I've even put out a controller guide back in the day, because while I say I'm a new player, I played it back in 2012, and you know, honestly, like I enjoyed it. But 14 came out, and that's kind of I got consumed by that for over like 11 years now. But I thought a couple things with Guild Wars in my return. I was like, well, let me go ahead and make an investment. So I actually, like, I'll show you guys. I got a Tartarus Pro 2 and an MMO Scimitar by Corsair.
Oh, that's the one you got? Was it the Pro?
That's what everybody recommends.
I love
it. I put out the question. I was like, guys, let me go ahead and make that investment. What should I buy? Because I'm a controller player. What should I buy? That's what the community said. This is not sponsored in any way. And I really enjoy these devices. I haven't put out a review on them because I find that, you know, I want to spend at least some more time with it. Like I want to, you know, just so it's like, yep, it holds up. It feels great. I still feel I'm playing around with my configuration and still kind of learning that aspect, but it is what it is. And this actually gives me a little bit of that separation, because it is a little bit different from like here I am on a keyboard, etc. And I've really enjoyed that experience overall. But if Guild Wars 2 started supporting controller natively, if I could sit back and on my couch play it on the thing, like you said, like when you want to talk to like NPCs, like there's things that it'd be like, hey, let me just boot this up and kind of chill and not have to feel like I got to come to a computer and sit down. That would be ideal. That's what 14 gives me. It gives me the ability to have that accessibility. Do I want to play on the TV tonight? Maybe. You know, do I want to play on the computer? Well, yeah, like I'll have a better experience, but sometimes I don't care about being efficient. Right. And in that regard. So it's like, yeah. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. And so if you get really good with, is it called a gamepad? It's a gamepad, right?
I usually just go with controller, but
oh no, the one that you purchased for playing Guild Wars 2. I've always just called it a gamepad.
I guess it is like a gamepad. I have the box. I could pull it out if needed.
Yeah. It's fine. But do you think that once you actually like really feel comfortable with that and are ready to do a review, that maybe other people don't necessarily play the game with a gamepad, and that you would do a guide with that as well? Or would you want to stick with a controller once and if they do controller support, especially since it's coming out on Steam, so a lot of people think it's going to be a thing?
Oh yeah, I've been hearing a lot of people say just wait for the Steam version, which I hope it does, because I hear Steam does have the mapping, and I'd love to check it out and have that. As far as a guide, like I'm not against it. I would like to bring value to that. I would like to make sure that the work that I put into that would have somebody get something out of it. That's the whole point of my, like, when you talk about being entertaining, like I don't view myself as entertaining. That's one of the nice things about teaming up with
Aw.
Chris. I find him more entertaining, like to watch. And this is perhaps me. Yeah, I'm not trying to be negative on me. I look at myself as a teacher. Like my highest job, like it's weird. Like I knew I wanted a large family, and I met my wife also wanted a large family. So we found each other, and we made a large family. And so I was like, well, how can I provide for said family? And the answer was, don't teach yet. And I find with guide creation, it kind of feeds that aspect. I aspire to be kind of I would like to go from being a programmer to going and teaching at like either a university or a high school level to help people, like just figure it out. Like I like teaching. I like sharing what I've learned. So the guide is not far from it. And that's what I get out of it. That's why I like making guides. But I would feel like I would want to make sure that I bring something to that guide. It's like rather than like, here's these mappings, like why is that more efficient? Like how is that more comfortable? Why would somebody want to go, and especially with the gamepad in this case, spend the money on it? Like, does it give you more? And what's that difference, right? Like if it, I think for me, like it is comfortable because I can sit back like this and relax a little bit more, as opposed to like if I was on the keyboard and my mouse like this.
And I'm sitting like that already.
So there's a value. It could exist that way. I haven't planned that out. Like in terms of content, like the list is a mile long. So it's like, it really just kind of comes down to like, what do I want to make, and what do I feel like I can bring a value to? And I don't feel like I'm there yet. That's why I actually haven't. People keep asking me about it. I'll talk about it on stream. I say I really enjoy it, but I feel like I still need more time invested. And maybe that's just the fact that I've got thousands and thousands of hours with this, and I've only got, I think the last time I did a play check within Guild Wars, I was coming up on 100 hours. So, 5,000 hours, on 14 versus 100 hours of Guild Wars 2. Yeah, I just don't feel like I'm there, and I don't want to rush that out to people. Absolutely. And then it's like, oh man, I missed that one completely, And it does happen. I am human.
No, yeah, for sure. And in terms of returning new player, checking everything out again, how do you feel about the new player experience in Guild Wars 2?
I'm assuming things have changed because it has been phenomenal. Like, and so I can't speak to the history. And when I posted a video about how I'm really enjoying Guild Wars, like I expected there to be kickback from people who've got, 1,000 or 5,000 hours. Like, yeah, there's been some history. And I went and watched like Wood and Potatoes and like Mighty Teapot. Like I went and got caught up on what kind of the community, like what's going on. I can't relate to that. It's like, oh, that drama happened, or that like happened within there. Like I have no connection to it. So I'm kind of just like, an observer. So I wanted to like be aware of it, but I don't have a feeling towards it. I was like, that sounds like it sucks. I'm sure if I was there at the time, I'd be upset too. But here I am as like, I consider myself a new player, like hands down. I already have a couple characters. I think my mistake here was originally when I started back in the day and when I played, I picked the wrong class. I had the wrong mindset going into it. And so with this, it was just that I started with the Necro. I wanted to start all the way over at level 1. I didn't pick up my level 80 warrior. I didn't pick on my level 60 elementalist. Like I had a bunch of little classes. I didn't have them all. I never kind of thought about it in terms of that. I was like, well, maybe I played the wrong class this whole time, because I even have been starting playing around with my elementalist again, and I'm getting my butt kicked. And it's like, okay, hey, I'm learning, but maybe that was a part of the problem. Like I go in on Necro and I'm like, as a minion master throughout just the zone, it's insanely amazing. Like I'm loving it. And so chat, and also like I put out a poll, so they voted, and it tied between Elementalist and Mesmer. And so I was like, okay, cool. Well, let me just do all the magic ones. And so I just kind of got this idea in my head. It's like, you know what? I'm just going to level up everything. And then I talked to Chris, and he's like, you're doing it wrong. And I was like, huh? He's like, right now, there's World v World bonus experience going on. You can get your Warclaw mount, and you're going to get some tomes of experience. I go, oh man, so the efficient expert in me comes out and says, oh, let me go. I like World v World. I like PvP. So it's like, well, let me go do that for a little bit. So I'm I'm trying to get back on track. I want to get my work law. So I'm trying to set like what are my goals now. So I want to get the work law because that bonus thing ends at the end of this week, and then next week it's fractals or something. And then after that, then I'm going to return and I'm going to see if I can't finish off Elementalist and Mesmer. Then I want to look at my overall classes and let the community vote on what I level up next, with the ultimate goal of actually having all classes at level 80 at some point. I don't know when that's going to happen. I know we have a long gap between now and Endwalker. I know in June PSO2 New Genesis drops, and I'm just trying to make sure I don't just overcommit myself to this thing. So in my mind, I think this time next year, I will have all classes at cap and Guild Wars. Like, I wanted to sit here and say, what can I get done this month? And who knows, like, maybe I'm doing it wrong. We'll see. But it's like, yeah, I'm loving it. I'm loving my Necromancer, and I think I'm very curious to see if I find any other classes that I really resonate with, because I think essentially what the problem was. I enjoyed Warrior, but not to the degree of Necro. And I think a problem is I just never felt really connected to a character, a class. And it'll be interesting to see if this is the one I end up maining.
Right.
But I want to get everything up to say, oh, what do I like?
And it's actually kind of funny that you mentioned that, because my very first Guild Wars 2 video was literally, guys, I'm going to do an impression, and it's literally going to cover everything, because I want to do everything before I put out this impression, because I feel like a lot of people play the wrong class first. It's not the game. It's this wasn't, the class or the race for you. And so it was just kind of funny. And with you being the lore buff for Final Fantasy XIV out of the duo, have you been paying attention to a lot of the story in Guild Wars 2, or did you just no?
I have sat on it. It's sitting over there, and honestly, to the point where I need to. I just don't know when, and I know it delivers a lot of experience, and I know that, like, because I've done like I with my new Necro, I did up and I've unlocked the level 20 story. Like, literally.
Yep.
I've enjoyed the freedom of the world exploration and how easy it is just to get together. And I have found the leveling experience to be very soothing and relaxing. And I've been playing with my wife, and I find that it's like, yeah, we're just going running around killing. I love that I'm getting fed story and lore via just like NPCs, and I don't feel like I have to stop. Yeah, and it's like
so many
they can
people
feed me
miss
exposition.
that.
Yeah. But I'm not going to sit here and, like, to be I think a lore expert in this game would require, like, me having played for the last since 2012. So my plan is to do the stories, because I got my mount unlock, I've got my glider unlock, so there's all those things that I've unlocked, and my plan is that I'm going to find the time to do the story. I don't know when that's going to be, but I would like to try to get caught up before End of Dragons, but that might be too ridiculous in terms of like, hey Brian, you can play 4 to 6 hours of video games a week, and there's amazing games. Like, go and like, if I keep dividing up my time, I just basically, my ideal from a game perspective is that if I have like 3 to 4 games that I love, and so when you think of Guild Wars 2, Final Fantasy 14, Phantasy Star Online 2, like, it's those 3, like, that gives me like then each one can have the focus of my year for 4 months. Whether that's consistent or just like, I'm focusing on Guild Wars, be all end all, 4 months straight. Cool. All right, I got it done. Now 14's out. Boom, 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 boom. And if I have that kind of mindset, like, that gives me a lot of, like, there's a lot of time in a year. And then that gives me a little bit of the variety that I seek personally, because I just can't be a guy who just plays one game. I can't. That's just not who I am.
Right. And it's actually kind of funny that you mentioned that, because I feel like, and I believe that you and Chris have discussed this before, just like in your morning chats at the beginning of streams, where it's just like new players are coming in from, World of Warcraft for the Exodus and all of that, or the second, third, fourth Exodus.
The third.
Yeah, the every year. And
Yeah.
it was just funny because the way that you mentioned, I'd like to say that I would like to get there before End of Dragons. And that's kind of like a new player coming in for Final Fantasy XIV. And you're like, do you think you'll finish the story? Oh, yeah, I'll get there by Endwalker. Well, you're new. And there's literally, like, not to gatekeep, but you don't understand how many hours of gameplay that actually is with how long the MSQ is. So it's just funny that you mentioned that, because I think I made that mistake when I started. And I was like, oh, yeah, I'll get there by Shadowbringers. A month in.
We had you. We're like, all right, keep us up to date. Like, we'd like to talk to you when you get there. And you got there,
Right.
Yeah, but It's a lot to take on with any game, and so it's
Absolutely.
like, yeah, I think I'm just trying to make sure I find that balance of joy,
Right.
and it's just like, yeah, like honestly, like Guild Wars 2 could be a game that I could just work on, like unlocking all the renowned and 100%ing every
Hmm.
little map, and like that, like at the end of the day, I don't really have goal plans, which is nice. That's one of the
Right.
things I really enjoy about it. The experience has been rock solid. There are things that I'm like, wow, like this game is so good. It's frustrating that we haven't seen other games either like adopt it, or the weakness of it
Hmm.
is its content schedule. Like right now,
Right.
as a new player, hey, here's this entire, like we've already finished all of these like this, not attractions, it's more sandbox, but like
Right.
here's this incredible experience. And then for the player who's like, yeah, I've got everything, like I want more. Like the
Hmm.
frustration, at least what I like, not I'm not going to sit here and try to sum up the whole
You're
community's
fine.
frustration in one like sentence, but what I feel of what I hear is that a lot of the community is like, I want more. Like it's like, and you end up having longer gaps. So hopefully maybe End of Dragons gives a lot of content for a lot of players. And then I think trying to find that establishment of the right proper updates. If Guild Wars 2 did that and if they came to consoles, like honestly, I would say that they could really just
Absolutely.
dominate in the space. Like I think people are hungry for something.
Yeah, and
So
that's why people are so excited for End of Dragons, and
yeah.
the amount of people that got pulled from a lot of what had happened, especially for Icebrood, was that a lot of people had gotten pulled from that content, which made the patch schedule even worse because they didn't want to release it until it was absolutely finished rather than being on a schedule. And then everyone else, all of their manpower went into End of Dragons. So hopefully, I mean, hopefully there's going to be the Steam release, and with that, like console stuff would be amazing. And then, you were saying that unfortunately that is a detriment. And then the other thing too is that there really isn't enough promotion for it and outreach, and it's mostly the creators. Because I even saw one of your videos that was like, why did I not know about this game? And it's like, yeah, I felt the same way. The only reason I knew was because of my fiance, and then I played it and I was like, wow. And speaking of which, you'd mentioned I actually did watch your impression video when you had talked about being a returning player. And I believe you said that even back in the day, you played with your wife as well. Is there something specifically that you guys do together that you think is fun? Does
She
she
likes
enjoy the
the
game just as
exploration.
much?
Uh,
Oh.
Probably not as much as me, but we sit down together and we play. I
Hmm.
think what's helped that out is GeForce Now, because Guild Wars 2 actually runs on that. So I'm
Hmm.
able to play like on a laptop that can't play games because I can just stream it, and I can
Right.
sit next to her and she can play on the device that can. So we're having and she likes the exploration. So honestly, what we find and we enjoy, and she's like level 60 something now. So it's like, it's like, yeah, she doesn't play every day or all the time, but we sit down and we go and explore the maps. We like to find all the different spots. She's a completionist, so that means she levels and plays very slowly. Because oh yeah, we got to go to that one point, etc. So we just do that together. Like we sit down, we have coffee or we have wine, and we just like play. And we just kind of explore, and it's a great time. Honestly, can't recommend it enough.
Hmm.
And so that's something that I appreciate, because then it's also I can play a game and also have quality time with my wife, and she gets to play and she gets to go and be like this, badass hero, and go slay some monsters. And yeah, it's fun, and that's one of the things that makes the world fun to explore, is that different events pop up and different
Hmm.
things like that, and the events also then chain. Like it's to the
Yep.
point where it's like it is so well in its design, especially how easy it is for her and I to play together. Just pop, like, okay, cool, like you don't even have to worry about what server you're on anymore. Like there's so
Right.
many things, there's so many barriers that have been broken down. It just makes me go like, man, like why aren't more people talking about this game? Why aren't more people playing this game? And part
Exactly.
of that's probably the on ArenaNet, on advertising, and a part of
Hmm.
that is on content creation. Like I think that's kind of one of the weird, and it's just my personal theory. People are welcome
Sure.
to disagree, but I think that if players like the game they're playing, they should watch, even if they're not going to actively watch, but if they can
Hmm.
support and have the watch time and the likes on videos like this one, like, favorite, subscribe, and this podcast,
Right.
like that helps get in front of more people. Talking about the game, both positive and negative, being honest about a game, you're good. Being
Sorry.
honest about a game is, I think, important to help drive more people to consider checking it out. And honestly, I find that when you're negative, like when you're honest about the game, someone's more likely going to go see like, hey, what are they talking about? But if nobody's talking about the game, if people aren't making videos about the game, then they, it's just like that. Like, and YouTube is good at recommending things, and it sucks at recommending things. One of the things I say, and I've seen, is that most of the content creators I've been introduced to that I really enjoy came from somebody recommending them, not the algorithm.
Right.
And it's like, okay, you like this guy's content, like, just like, comment, all that stuff, because that will promote the game. Even if you don't like the message that like they're sending, like go hit up Zan's playlist, let it fly, and then you'll see that puts that content out in front of more people. More people might check out the game.
Oh, right. And it's so funny too that you mentioned that in the way you did, because in the most recent video I posted, like 90% of the comments were, well, yeah, but we're, we got your back. We're the silent majority. And it's like, don't be silent. And that's like the worst thing that you could possibly. I get it. I do.
Algorithms,
people,
yeah. In terms of algorithms, because you get the like on the problem with 14 video. I thought that was an excellent video. The problem with but the thing is that negative comments, even on a stream, like, those get attention even from the content creator, right? So people are like, oh, like, a title's negative, and that's what, it's like, the negativity unfortunately draws on that, and we reward that. We reward that with a response, because there's the idea that we want to have that and have that dialogue. I think that's a human trait. And so, yeah, the silent majority, like, if they spoke up, like, it would just drown out the negative. And it's unfortunate because, like, it's not on them. It's not their responsibility. The goal, I think, is on the content creator to create content that's worthwhile of being engaged with. Like, in a perfect world, that's what you have. But ideally, what you end up having, and hopefully we'll get to the point, is that enough people are speaking up that the negative stuff just gets drowned out completely. Or who knows, maybe it gets worse because they have to become even more toxic in order to try to get that attention. And then that just kind of drives from there,
Right. And then obviously there's that too, where people aren't as comfortable with being social too. So there's that as well. Like, maybe they've always watched you, maybe they've subscribed, maybe they always like your videos, but they don't necessarily say anything because they're nervous too. So there's a lot that goes into it.
Come in and be like, oh, what are you talking about? I see videos all the time. People are like, thank God Brian's talking about this. Like, I try to bring like a thoughtful approach, but within gaming, the the minority of are this mindset where, like, it's binary. Like, it's you can't even have you can't even exist in a gray zone. Can't find okay, here's the things that are good and bad about this. No, it's got to be, and they'll be the ones that speak up the most, and it can be, it can be challenging, because it's like, okay, how do you engage with somebody who's unwilling to listen?
Right.
And I haven't found the answer.
No.
I don't know.
And with that, and just since you brought up 14, can you possibly tell us some things that you think would be really cool if 14 adopted it from Guild Wars 2 and vice versa?
Oh man, easily for 14, if they took the market board from Guild Wars 2, I absolutely adore the market system. I love that you can list buy orders and sell orders. I feel like I like what I'm saying, though, in terms of 14, I think it is so much work in terms of coding and design.
Oh yeah.
Hey, Yoshi P, go take these 5 things from Guild Wars, and we'll see that those changes roll in 2025, 2026, or 7 or 8. Like, it is a massive overhaul, because, like, you have to change the philosophy of 14's economy, in-game economy, which I think absolutely should. But that's just my personal belief. I believe in player trade more than anything. I think when you look at the hardcore raider and just the casual player, when you don't allow for trade, like when everything's bind on pickup, then you essentially separate them into their own little lanes. And when everything is tradable, then it doesn't matter. If you got savage gear because you went out and you made lots of money, and then you bought that piece of gear that raider got that didn't need, and they sold it, who cares? Like, who cares? And people are like, but people put gear into a trophy status, where when glamour systems and wardrobe systems exist, completely obliterate that counter argument. And so I think you should have trophies for the hardest content in game. I think, like, only this person who cleared this can apply a glow or some kind of effect to the gear or to mounts or whatever, because there should be a reason to go and try to strive to be the best. Some kind of what used to be called gear lust doesn't exist anymore in MMOs. Anybody who thinks it does is living in the past, or they're still playing old school RuneScape, which is great. You should totally check it out. But that mindset is that we've introduced systems and we haven't yet finished the thought, in my opinion. So I think player trade and economy is the solution to in-game toxicity, because the raider should need the casual, because the casual will farm up mats for cheap. Right? I'm playing and I'm just like, oh, cool. Somebody's willing to buy that for 5 silver. Maybe it's worth 6 silver. I'll take 5 now. But then, it keeps the economy flowing and going. In the open world, putting people into populated maps, I think would be a massive improvement for 14. It goes into, like, the fact is that should you allow for open world level design? I believe so. I love leveling in the open world. I love seeing other people. When I play Guild Wars 2, even if I'm playing like by myself, I'm never alone. There's always people around. There's always people coming together for events, and there's always somebody just to see. Like, even if I don't want to chat, I don't have to, because I can have that experience. And in 14, everything kind of becomes that, isolating, instance. Both have pros and cons.
Right.
Right. Take into Guild Wars from 14, their patch schedule. Like, imagine if Guild Wars 2 got big updates every 3 months. Like, that would be massive. So the question is that, it's easy to sit here and say, like, take this and take that, but there's some, like, I think a lot of it comes into the core design. I think when I look at Guild Wars 2, really thoughtful design, and maybe it's not executed as well, in certain areas. Maybe, like, we all want X, Y, and Z, but, like, at its root, I love the player-driven economy. I love the horizontal progression. I love the sandbox elements. I love the World v World and PvP, and and there's things that I'm like, this is what I've been wanting in 14 for a long time. And 14 has its strengths as well. Like, I love the controller support. I love the console support. I love the patch cycle. And it's not like I would propose those games as actually adversarial. I always look at it as, like, what's your MMO plus? So, like, I have my main MMO, which for me, I would still say my main MMO is Final Fantasy 14 plus Guild Wars 2. That's a great life. That's a great life, because unfortunately, no one MMO in today's modern standards can really, I think, deliver everything. I would say Guild Wars 2 has a lot for me to offer as a new player, but at some point, like Brian's done, at some point, like, with enough time, and that's the kind of gamer I'm at. I'm just kind of like slowly forming the Grand Canyon and just chip away at it a little bit at a time.
And I feel like those two games really complement each other too, because of how vastly different they are in certain aspects. And because for both games, it's almost encouraged for you to take time off and do something else. And so it's perfect, because if you're not caught up in one, like a new patch releases, you can set one down, do that, and then come back. But I've kept you. So if you have anything that's coming up soon, any special events, anything you want to let people know, and then just make sure that you let everyone know where they can find you again. And guys, I want to have Brian back on the podcast
I'd love to be back. I really appreciate you actually doing this because it's like, she's been like, hey, can you do this at night? And when it becomes to nighttime, like, it's like, if the kids are asleep, there's so many ifs to check. And so it's like kind of where my content creation window is like, I don't actually have a meeting at that time. I can take an hour off work and go and talk to you. And I loved it. So hopefully you will find a time to be able to kind of I can keep you guys up to date on that progress. As far as what I am working on, I've got I'm psyched for Phantasy Star Online 2. I told you guys already in the podcast today I'm working on my Warclaw, and then essentially just going to work on some characters and leveling and just enjoying that experience. And I've obviously 14's got a patch next week. So I'm going to dive into the story, kind of get ready to go on that. And then I'm just kind of playing around, working on Relic and working on a regular tome. So, like, I just feel like as a gamer, I'm in gaming heaven right now, because, like, there's just a lot to be excited about and play. And then in terms of content creation, let's just say I had and was able to play with an incredible streamer last night, and we'll just keep it at that. But I was playing the Final Fantasy 11, and so that was a really cool little treat. We'll keep it going, and I'm going to keep playing, and who knows? We'll see if that turns into a collab, but, who knows?
That would be cool.
That would be really cool. Like, I'd be like, all right, let's talk about Final Fantasy 11. So I got Final Fantasy 11 installed, and it's like, there's a lot to do. So it's just like, the goal is to find the thing that I want to do and have the most fun at, and to not worry about it. I'm just trying to like sit here and say, you know what, this is great. We got a lot of really exciting things coming up, and just kind of find some time to enjoy both games, and then also, finishing. We actually beat Bowser last night in Super Mario Super Mario World. So maybe I'll start
awesome.
getting Maddie into Smash Brothers now or something like that. So
That
that's
would
my
be so
plan.
cool. Aw.
Yeah. Then,
So
yeah,
cute.
and then we post every day to Work to Game. That's our goal. Is
Mhm.
like to have at least a daily discussion video. That was always the vision for the channel. We did that pivot back in the fall. Like it already did it, but we announced that we actually made that pivot, and we saw we've seen up and down on the subs. But I think overall people are like, that's what Work to Game is. We're
Right.
talking about the game, and we have different opinions about it, and we try to highlight everybody's voice. And then within Ginger Prime, just like I'm excited about the next couple of months are going to be insane. So
That's
it's
a
going to
good
be
thing, though.
Yeah, like it's going to be great because we're going to go into the summer. Summer is usually when I get my most grinding in because I won't have to take kids to school, won't have to pick up kids from school. Like there ends up being a time where it's like, yeah, like all right, I don't have to get the kids up at 6:30 in the morning. Like I can just get up and play, and that's what I do. Like I finished off leveling all my jobs last summer in 14 because I would just get up early and just
Right.
put some time in, just chip away at it a little bit here and there. So that's what I got coming up. Like, I'm sorry, I'm not like Chris. Chris is like usually like, I'm gonna make this video on this day and this video on this day. I'm like, you do you, dude. Like,
That's totally fine.
I'm just gonna like, I just kind of go off of how I feel. And
You're
there's things that
fine.
I'm like, I have like on the list, and I'm hopeful that I'll get to. And people, basically, what ends up getting prioritized is when somebody comes back in the comments, they're like, "Hey, weren't you working on a video about X?" And I go, "Yeah, okay, cool, top of the list. I'll see if I can get it done
Yeah,
for you this
exactly.
weekend."
No, that's awesome. But
Yeah.
thank you so much for hanging out. I really appreciate it, guys. Make sure you check out all of Brian's channels. I will have all of the Work to Game stuff here. And then if I know you had a hard stop time, but if you're able to I'll try to collect as many links as I can. But anything that you would like included in the description of the video so people can find you, because your guys' content is awesome. So, and I really would like to have you back. So thank you so much for doing this, for taking the time out of your. Today's
for having me.
Friday, Saturday.
I think it's Friday. I thought
Friday.
it was Thursday, and I was like, "What day is it? Oh my gosh!" I missed the trash this week. By the way, like I've been off all week. FanFest threw me off hardcore, and so then I heard the trash truck, and I was like, "Well, missed that one. I guess it's Wednesday."
Oh jeez.
But yeah, I'll give you that. All you got to do is if you like tag at Work to Game and at Ginger Prime.
Yep.
Honestly, from there, if anybody is interested in the other stuff, it's there. But
Okay.
I want people to find it if they want it. If they don't,
Right.
then yeah, we're good.
So if you were able to watch this far, make sure to let me know in the comments if you would like to see Brian back to continue our conversation, because I really would like to have him back just to talk. And I probably could have talked for 2 hours with him. It's so easy. I actually forgot to hit record at the beginning, which is why some of this is cut. So here is where I would normally also have my Patreon page. But unfortunately, I do have to change that up a little bit. Unfortunately, but not unfortunately. We've gotten new people, so I guess that's not bad. I just have to change it up. So thank you guys so much for everything. Special thanks to my patrons. I'll have some cool stuff up for you guys as well. And special events that are coming up for me. I will be doing a podcast with Llama Todd tomorrow, talking about Savage content and how he feels about Endwalker. And then on Sunday, I'll actually be doing a podcast with Rook, or Brit of Chess, whichever you know her from. And I'm really excited for both. And I'll also have some other content in between that I'll be posting next week for Guild Wars 1, Guild Wars 2, LOTRO, maybe Final Fantasy 14, and ESO? Maybe Old School RuneScape. I don't know. We'll see what happens. We'll see where the creativity takes me. And anyway, if you want to try out Guild Wars 2 and you haven't yet, check the links down below. I actually do have a link that helps support me from Ana. And if you want to follow Brian or myself on any other social media, maybe you didn't know we both stream on Twitch, check out all of those links, and I will see you guys at the next one.